Do you know what date it is? It's my anniversary. My anniversary. I'm going to say it again. Do you know what date it is? It's my anniversary. My anniversary. Listen, folks, I know I am not Tony, and Tone, but guess what? It's my anniversary. 27 years ago to this date, it was Monday, July 28th, 1997. I, the real Brian Glaze Gibbs, got another opportunity to freedom. A lot of times we don't appreciate nothing until it's entirely too late. See, people don't understand right now is without no test, there's no testimony. I started this journey right now is at 14. From the age of 14 to 24, I was a sick individual in and out of the penitentiary, doing everything, committing crimes, petty larceny, robbery, theft, graduating, from that to selling drugs, to murders, becoming something that I wasn't. And you know what, folks, listen, I had to pay a price. And it took 15 years out of my life that I cannot get back. And I'm here to say right now is, guess what? There's no shortcut in life, and crime doesn't pay. If I, the real Brian Glaze Gibbs, can change, anybody can change. But guess what? You have to want to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read an excerpt from my book, okay? Beyond Lucky. The Brian Glaze Gibbs story, a true story of crack, money, murder, and redemption. Out of prison as a new person. It was Monday, July 28th, 1997. I didn't sleep much that night before. I was very excited. The moment of truth after serving 8 years, 8 months, and 17 days of a 10-year sentence given to me by the federal government for my involvement in Operation Horse Collar. Okay? I knew I was beyond lucky since I was facing life imprisonment for 21 USC 848 and numerous murder charges. Like I said right now, I don't run away from the truth or whatever. I made a deal. I sat down and made a deal with the United States government. A lot of people come along, well, Glaze, you snitch, you rat, you toad. I didn't run away from that. I did sat down with the United States government and I did cooperate. I did spoke to the enemy. I did came clean of all the murders that I, Brian Glaze Gibbs, was responsible for. So even with that being said, everybody keeps saying, well, what happened? You know what? I snitch. I cooperate. I became a rat. I bite the cheese. Okay. As I was walking out of Otisville FCI on this day, that morning when the correctional officer opened up the cell that I was no longer going to occupy, I showered, got dressed in my black slack, black short sleeve shirt, mark neck, a black and white checkered sports jacket with a black pair of slip-on Johnson Murphy shoes, all from the men's warehouse. Walking out of there at 33 years old, in the best shape of my life, muscle everywhere with a six-pack. I was physically fit. I felt I had muscle in my teeth. I felt like I just walked off the cover of GQ magazine. My next destination was unknown to me. I was one of few who was given the new name, new social security number, and a new identity. I was no longer Brian Glaze Gibbs. Re-entering society, I had to create this person I am today. Keep in mind, I had no prior job sets or skill. I had no prior. I learned work ethic from being in prison. Fortunately, I developed working habit while incarcerated from a good friend of mine. I'm just going to say not. Now, it was about to pay off. Keep in mind, I was 33 years old, just being released from serving time, and my resume only include my accomplishment, armed robbery, assault, multiple murder, attempt murder, and several drug charges. Now, my true test was filling out an application for employment opportunity with no working background, which is a bit difficult to do. But I did it. I must admit, I was scared. I was back out in the street without a gun, a bulletproof vest. Instead of dealing with situation as my former self, I had to maybe call the police to help. If something happened, if my house got broken into, if somebody did something to my family, I had to be like everybody else, pick up the phone and call the police. I wasn't used to that. I'm so used to right now, if somebody do something to me and my family, I was taught, get my gun, get my vest, and take action. Nah, that was scary. So listen, like I said right now, folks, like I told you, even right now with this whole situation, like I said right now, it was just something totally different, man. Being free, starting all over, moving around, trying to get yourself established. And like I said, I'm coming home as a new person, being part of the Federal Witness Protection Program. They gave me a new name. They gave me a new ID. I had to create a name, okay? And I had to become something that I wasn't. Do you know what that do to you from a psychological standpoint? For the first 14 years of my life, I was Brian Keith Gibbs. From 14 to 33, I was Brian Keith Glaze Gibbs. Now, from 33 to present, I became somebody else. Do you know what that do to you from a mental standpoint? Not counting, I think about the fact that I already had mental illness. I already had psychological anger management issue and other mental, you know what I'm saying, like defaults. But once again, now I'm getting a fresh start to start all over. And you know what, folks, it wasn't easy, but I was determined. I remember when I met up with the U.S. Marshal and the probation officer. And right now, guess what? They didn't give me much chance to survive in the street. I didn't know it at the time. I told these folks, I said, look, man, I'm ready. I'm hungry. I am not going back to jail. They told me, listen, man, but without no real working history, work ethic or whatever, no real skill, no trade, guess what? It's going to be hard for you. I said, listen, I don't care if I have to go from garbage can to garbage can and collecting aluminum cans. I know right now is out of all that time I spent in the jail cell, out of all the time I spent incarcerated, guess what? I know I can get out there and I can invent me a job collecting cans. I know automatically right now if I go from one garbage can to another garbage can collecting aluminum cans, I know if I do that 9 months to 1 year, I knew I can collect me 1 million to 1.5 million cans at 5 cents a pop. That is $50,000 to $75,000. You know what these folks did? They look at me like I was crazy. They look at me like I was crazy. And it wasn't until 18 months later when I was talking to the United States probation officer, I said, man, you're doing a hell of a job. 18 months I was out. She said, you're doing a hell of a job. So I asked her, her name was Kathy. I said, how long you gave me to last? I said, honestly speaking, I gave you 90 days. I say 90 days? I said, yeah, we read all that, your background, who you once was and everything that you did. I didn't feel you were gonna make it. But she said, well, the U.S. Marshal, Dave, no guys only gave you 45 days. Folks, listen, man, I like it when the gun's to my head. I love it when the gun's to my head. Because once again, here it is, she don't know me. She didn't know my testimony. She didn't know everything I've been through. She didn't know right now that I changed. She didn't know none of that. She didn't know what I went through when my mother died. She didn't know the commitment I made to God. I said, listen, right now, I don't care. When I get out, I'm never going back. And I meant that. And I stood on that. And right now, listen, I'm celebrating 27 years today of freedom. 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 I don't care if you're addicted to drugs. I don't care if you're addicted to alcohol. I don't care if you're addicted to gambling. Guess what? You can overcome that. I was addicted to prison. I was addicted to fast money. I was addicted to girls come shout and clap your hand. But guess what? With prayer, with right now making the right decision, with being disciplined, guess what? I changed. Hey, folks, listen, for more of my story, Google Brian, B-R-I-A-N, Glaze, G-L-A-Z-E, Gibbs, G-I-B-B-S. Get your signed copy of the Beyond Lucky book, the Brian Glaze Gibbs story, a true story of crack, money, murder, and redemption. If I can change, anybody can change. 27 years of freedom, freedom, freedom. Thank God, thank God, thank God Almighty. Free at last, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Hit the like button, subscribe, share, support. I am the real Brian Glaze Gibbs. Like I say, I was evil. I was devious. I would slap the living daylight out of somebody they step out of line. You know what? But you can't do that no more. You had to adapt. You had to change your ways. If I didn't change my ways, I would never be celebrating 27 years. Peace, love, and prosperity. One love.